Hey, so I'm going to break down the science of storytelling and why it's so critical if you're trying to persuade somebody. I'm Dr. Dan. I help chiropractors and natural health providers help more people using brain-based communication. In this video, I want to break down the science of storytelling. Listen, if you're not using the power of story, you need to start. Bad story beats better information every single day of the week. And here's why. Story influences the decision-making part of the brain more than anything else. Think about it. Why does Hollywood exist? We don't sit down and turn on Netflix and want more information. I want to sit down tonight and just get some information in my head. No, I want a story. And all of the videos, shows, and movies are what? A story. Have you ever thought about that? The most influential communication of all time is story. God created our brains to take in information, and by the time it reaches the conscious part of the brain, you've already turned it into a story. So where I live is teaching clients how to cut out the middleman. When you craft your content and your information and your product, service, or offer in a story, it changes the value and the action that somebody will take. This happened for me when I never would have expected it. In 2008, I was building my practice and I was doing it really tough. It was a little stressful. I was trying to be somebody else. I was using scripts. I was using protocols that other people created that worked, but it was very not me. So I felt like I was putting on a mask day after day after day, and it was exhausting. And I'm not a stressful, kind of depressive guy, but it got me to a place where, man, I don't know if I could do this long term. And then one day I was in an emotional state. My dad had just had a heart attack and he was going through a heart surgery. And I came back into the practice that day and I scrapped all my scripts. I threw away all my standard protocols and communication, and I just told my story. And I told the story of clients, I told the story of patients, and something magical happened. Up until that point, the most I'd collected in a week was $8,000. That night, one night, collected $30,000. And it felt effortless. But it wasn't until 10 years later, in 2018, that I really dove deep and studied the power of story. Because I noticed in some clients who use story, they just got better results. And I went back on my own journey, I'm like, I did too. And I thought, maybe there's something to this. And if you've heard more of story in the last 10 years, it's not coincidence. In 2012, more money got put to studying the power of story than ever before. This has allowed us to know under brain fMRI scanning what happens when somebody hears a story. What they saw is when a human communicates to another human using facts, data, and logic, it lights up the languaging and processing centers of the brain. But when that same human communicates to that other same human and uses a story, it lights up the entire brain like a Christmas tree. The reason why that's important is because the decision maker of the brain is this limbic area, this emotions center of the brain, not the rational logic center of the cortex. And so what a story does is it lights up everything, and particularly the decision-making centers. This would be important if you want somebody to pay you for something, to take action on something, to change their belief about something. Facts tell, stories sell. I am a really geek of this because I want to know exactly what makes the change so I can teach my clients and I can make a difference in my own life for people I'm trying to reach. Get them to know something, believe something, trust me or the thing that I'm trying to get them to understand. It turns out that there's one hormone called oxytocin. It's the breastfeeding hormone. It's the bonding hormone. It's a mother and her baby hormone. It's the total bond. That bad boy skyrockets when you tell a good story. As a result, when somebody has increased amounts of oxytocin in their bloodstream, they have an ability to trust you. This is the difference from somebody buying from you or not buying from you, believing you or not believing you, taking action on your product, service, and offer or not. And so the question you may or should be asking yourself right now is, how do you elicit the most amount of oxytocin? Well, number one is you gotta tell a story. And number two, you gotta tell it with the right formula. There's a recipe to crafting and articulating a story that will literally have people eating out of your hands, as they like to say. And it's not manipulative. It's actually very intentional. And with the right heart, you will be able to persuade even the unpersuadable by using this specific framework. You could have the greatest thing in the world, but if you can't convince enough people, then it just won't matter. So I look at that and say, how do you convince more people? Well, you gotta start with the way the humans are wired. And that is why story matters. If you find yourself out there and you want to influence more people, you need to be using the power of story. If you need help, that's what I do. Building, crafting, and articulating the greatest stories to make the greatest impact. Click the link somewhere in the notes. My team and I would be honored to work with you and take your mission to the next level. In the meantime, go tell more stories. Dr. Dan, I'm out.